The waves that morning were nothing like the gentle lapping of the Thai coastline Petra Nemcova had grown accustomed to. Something was different. Something was wrong. December 26th, 2004, a date that would be etched into her memory forever. What began as an idyllic vacation, a romantic escape with her fiancé, was about to transform into a moment of unimaginable terror, a confrontation with nature's most brutal and indiscriminate power. The world would soon learn the meaning of devastation, but in that suspended moment before chaos would rewrite everything she knew, Petra had no idea how drastically the next few hours would challenge her very survival. The ocean was breathing, and its next inhale would change everything. To understand how a single moment can unravel an entire life, we must first look back to the journey of a young woman who had already defied the odds, long before the sea would challenge her very existence. In the world of international modeling, Petra Nemcova was more than just a beautiful face. Petra was born on June 24, 1979 in Prague, which was then Czechoslovakia and under communist rule. Growing up, Petra's childhood in the small town of Karvina was shaped by the stark realities of a society under strict political control. Her family, like many others, lived in a small apartment in Prague, navigating the limited opportunities and constant surveillance that characterized life behind the Iron Curtain. Her mother and father both struggled to provide stability in a system that was often oppressive and restrictive. The family's economic challenges were a daily reality, luxuries were rare, and dreams were constrained by political boundaries. Young Petra learned about resilience, watching her parents maintain hope and dignity despite the oppression, lessons that would shape her own path. The Velvet Revolution of 1989, which peacefully overthrew the communist regime when Petra was just 10, became a pivotal moment of transformation, not just for the country, but for families like hers who suddenly saw possibilities expanding before their eyes. Her journey began like many aspiring models. At just 15, Petra was spotted by a modeling scout in Prague. By 16, she had already stepped onto the global stage, her distinctive look catching the eye of fashion powerhouses like Elle, Glamour, and Victoria's Secret. But Petra was never content to be just a passive canvas for photographers. She was intelligent, with an understanding that a modeling career was as much about brand as it was about beauty. By 2004, at just 25, Petra had risen to a status beyond that of a mere model. She was fluent in 6 languages, now a brand, a developing humanitarian, and a woman in love. Even as she graced runways in Paris, Milan, and New York, she was developing a vision of using her platform for something more meaningful. Her relationship with Simon Attlee, a British photographer who seemed to grasp the depths of her world, felt like the perfect match for her dynamic life. Together, they were adventurers with a love for travel, bound by a shared passion for exploring the planet's most breathtaking corners. On this fateful morning, the La Flora Resort in Khao Lak sat like a tranquil dream just 60 kilometers north of Phuket, its beachfront bungalows nestled mere meters from the Andaman Sea. Simon was intent on capturing the beauty around him through the lens of his camera. Petra, wearing a simple white sundress, walked along the beach, her hair dancing in the breeze. They had discussed having children recently, tentatively, cautiously. Simon wanted 2. Petra was thinking more practically about their careers. Maybe 1, she had said just days before. Now, in this peaceful resort, those conversations hung in the air, possibilities waiting to be explored. They had met 3 years earlier at a fashion shoot in Milan, where Simon's ability to see beyond the surface had intrigued her. Where most photographers saw just another model, he captured something deeper. The subtle strength behind her eyes, the quiet resilience that had carried her from the communist Prague to the international runways of the world. Little did Petra and Simon know that just beneath the ocean's surface, a geological drama of unimaginable proportions was about to unfold and change the course of their lives. Thousands of kilometers beneath them, 2 tectonic plates, the Burma Plate and the Indian Plate, had been locked in a violent struggle. At 7:58 a.m. local time, they would finally break free. This wasn't just an earthquake. It was one of the most powerful ever recorded, releasing energy equivalent to approximately 5 megatons of TNT, or 21 petajoules, surpassing the combined explosive energy of all of World War II, including the atomic bombs, by more than double. The seafloor would shift dramatically, displacing billions of tons of water and setting in motion a chain of events that would reshape the coastlines forever. Out in the deep waters, the tsunami moved silently and invisibly, a deceptive broad hump no more than 2 feet high, traveling at up to 1,000 kilometers an hour, as fast as a passenger jet. But as it approached the shallow coastal waters of Thailand, its character would transform entirely. The wave would slow dramatically, but in doing so would rear up like an angry giant. What had been barely noticeable in the deep ocean would soon become a towering wall of water. In Khao Lak, these waves would reach horrifying heights of 33 feet and travel as much as 2 miles inland. The tsunami in Khao Lak grew larger than others as it approached shore because it was amplified by the shallow seafloor and offshore coral reefs, which caused the wave to build in height. As Petra and Simon were walking along the beach that morning, they watched the ocean inexplicably draw back, exposing the seabed. It was beautiful and bizarre, but they had no idea what was happening, and Petra had never even heard of a tsunami before. They noticed an eerie silence. Petra remarked how strange it was that the birds had stopped singing. The gentle hum of life had stilled. No one, not the local fishermen, not the resort staff, not the tourists scattered along the beach, could have predicted what was about to unfold. Meanwhile, a wall of water was moving faster than any high-speed train, and they were directly in its path. About 2 hours later, they were packing in the bungalow when she saw people running away from the beach and screaming in fear, their faces contorted with terror. She recalls Simon saying, "Petra, Petra, what's going on?" Within seconds, their peaceful morning exploded into chaos. The waves smashed through their bungalow's windows and then collapsed the house all around them. The force of the water lifted them both off their feet as if they were weightless. In that moment, Petra felt Simon's hands slip from hers, their last connection before the ocean tore them apart. There was no warning, Petra later would recall. The noise was like nothing I'd ever heard before, like 1,000 trains coming at you at full speed. Simon vanished almost immediately. I saw City the last time when I saw his face. He was again screaming my name. His face was very afraid, Nemkova recalled. There was a roof from some other bungalow, and I said, "Grab the roof." But as Petra struggled frantically to survive, Simon was swept away. I was able to grab the roof, but the power of the water was bringing all the wood and trees and garbage and pressing it into my pelvis, breaking it again and again and again, she says. It was such pain. I was just screaming from the bottom of my lungs because it was unbearable. Then the water released the wood, and I thought, there's my chance. But at the same moment, there was another wave, and I was under the water, under a big layer of garbage. I tried to get to the air, but the garbage was so thick, it didn't let me go. I started swallowing water, and in that moment, it was peaceful. I stopped fighting. I let it go. I thought, this is it. Then the garbage released me, so I was able to come up, and I could breathe again. I never was so happy to see blue sky. As she was being pulled out to sea by the current, she saw other people grabbing onto palm tree branches, and she grabbed onto the last palm tree in sight. She was stranded, unable to move her lower body. Her pelvis felt broken. For the next 8 agonizing hours, she clutched the tree with a relentless grip, even as her hands grew numb. She couldn't see anything with the palm branches hanging all around her. Her scratched, bleeding body, stripped of clothing, was battered and in searing pain. She was drifting in and out of consciousness, and with each passing moment, her grip on the tree weakened. In her mind, she was flooded by memories, by the last sight of Simon disappearing into the water. Memories of their love, their dreams, and the life they were building together. Here she was, surrounded by devastation, silence broken only by cries of children and other survivors in their own horrific nightmare. I had to keep telling myself, if you sleep, you die, she would later recall. Her professional life as a model, a world of cameras and catwalks, seemed like a distant dream now. The only reality was survival, 1 minute at a time. She found herself whispering a prayer for survival. When her mind began to drift towards unconsciousness, she forced herself to do mathematical calculations, anything to stay alert. The injuries were severe. She would learn later that her pelvis was broken in 4 places, making every slight movement an exercise in agony. Yet the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torture of hearing other survivors' cries for help gradually fade into silence throughout the day. The hardest part, she would later say, was hearing children screaming and not being able to help them. As the hours passed, Petra wondered, uncertain if help would even come. When rescuers finally arrived, they offered her juice and asked if she could hold on to one of them for support, but her injuries made movement impossible. Alone again for a short while, she feared the cold night ahead, but soon more people returned, risking their lives to help her. Petra was in awe of their selflessness. Transport was agonizingly difficult due to her injuries, and the debris littered everywhere. They improvised moving her on a raft through water and then finally carrying her on a makeshift stretcher, a broken door. As they journeyed, she recalls seeing the most vivid, hauntingly red sunset, a sight she would never forget. Petra arrived at the local hospital, and she explained there were so many people with horrific injuries. It was like a war movie, and not enough beds, so they had to lay her on the floor with countless others. The next day, she was airlifted to a hospital. She recalls, the broken pelvis was the most painful thing I have ever experienced. The physical toll of survival was devastating. Blood streamed from multiple wounds. I had blood coming from everywhere, she would later recall, her voice steady despite the weight of the memory. Petra had to endure countless surgeries. Her injuries were very severe. Her pelvis was fractured in 4 places, dangerously close to her spine, and doctors were astounded she hadn't been paralyzed. She had severely damaged the tendons and ligaments in her hips, injuries that would shape her long road to recovery. She had lost half her blood due to internal injuries, including a kidney hematoma. My stomach was so swollen it looked like a football, she recalls, describing how doctors inserted a tube through her nose and throat to relieve the internal bleeding. Petra spent the next 2 months in a wheelchair, and by her account, intentionally focusing on positive things. What should have taken 2 years took a miraculous 4 months to recover from. Each day, she had to remind herself that she had survived for a reason. She tells the story of the kindness of hospital staff and the Thai people. A dying man laying next to her in the hospital, who likely had lost everything to the tsunami, gave her what was his last worldly possession, a necklace, and said it would bring her luck. When she was finally stable enough to travel, she was transferred back to her home country, the Czech Republic. There, she spent more time than prior to the tragedy visiting orphanages, bringing comfort and joy to the abandoned children in Prague. In the quiet moments of her rehabilitation, Petra sought solace in a new habit, writing letters to Simon. She had never kept a journal before, but now, putting her feelings into words became a way to stay connected, as if he were still here with her in spirit. Each day she wrote to him, feeling his presence despite the aching void left by his absence. As she fought through the physical challenges of rehabilitation, an even heavier burden weighed on her heart, the uncertainty surrounding Simon's fate. For 3 agonizing months, she lived in the limbo of hope and fear. Then, in March 2005, came the news that would forever change her life. When I learned about Simon 3 months later, it was absolutely devastating, she recalled, her voice catching as she recounted the moment. He was identified by his teeth and credit cards. The confirmation of his death, though crushing, brought a measure of closure to her grief. Simon was one among nearly 230,000 lives lost to the Indian Ocean tsunami. 4 months after the tsunami, despite her own ongoing recovery, Petra returned to Thailand. This return journey marked the beginning of her evolution from survivor to humanitarian leader. What she witnessed there, families without homes, children without parents, was most striking. Children without a single spark of hope in their eyes ignited a passion that would define her life's purpose. She went on to author an autobiography, Love Always Petra, which was published in 2005, where she shares insights into her life under communism, her path to fame, and her personal philosophy on resilience and giving back. Her story exemplifies how early life challenges and unexpected turns can lay the groundwork for a life of purpose and impact. 100% of the proceeds from the book were donated to help children affected by the 2004 tsunami in Thailand and other ongoing natural disasters worldwide. She felt the need to do what she could to restore hope and happiness in their lives. This led to the establishment of the Happy Hearts Fund in 2006, an organization that would revolutionize the approach to post-disaster recovery. Understanding that true recovery requires sustainable solutions, Petra developed a comprehensive approach to rebuilding. Each school constructed by HHF was designed not just to withstand future disasters, but to serve as a community anchor. We establish and incubate a small business, like a bakery or a similar community-oriented business, where revenues are used for ongoing school maintenance, she explained, demonstrating her commitment to long-term sustainability. She began supporting sustainable brands that prioritize environmental protection and fair wages, encouraging consumers to use their purchasing power as a force for positive change. "Became quite green. I have a very strong connection to nature," she explains, showing how her tsunami experience had awakened a broader environmental awareness. In 2017, her vision expanded further when Happy Hearts Fund merged with All Hands Volunteers to create All Hands and Hearts Smart Response. This strategic union amplified their impact, combining HHF's expertise in school reconstruction with All Hands Volunteers' rapid disaster response capabilities. The results were remarkable. 176 schools rebuilt across 10 countries, impacting over 105,000 children's lives. That same year, Nemcova's appointment as the UN's first World Tsunami Awareness Advocate recognized her unique perspective as both survivor and humanitarian leader. She even launched an innovative Tsunami Day campaign inviting coastal communities to walk alongside tsunami evacuation routes, transforming abstract disaster preparedness into concrete community-based action. Tsunamis are one of the least understood natural hazards, she noted, and we need to constantly remind people that however rare, it is the deadliest of all natural hazards when it strikes. Her philosophy, "We cannot control nature, but we can control the actions that we take," has driven her organization to expand its impact in 2019 to touching over 1 million lives. Each project embodies her belief: the world is becoming smaller and more fragile. We need every mind and every pair of hands to make the planet more livable, kind, and a just place to live. Today, through All Hands and Hearts, Nemcova's mission extends beyond mere reconstruction. It encompasses a holistic vision of community resilience, environmental sustainability, and hope. Behind every disaster, there are thousands of stories about thousands of forgotten children whose lives have been stopped and changed forever, she reminds us. Through her work and the thousands of volunteers worldwide, these children are no longer forgotten, but become bearers of hope and catalysts for change in their own communities. Rising from profound personal tragedy, Petra's journey shows the incredible impact that resilience, love, and purpose can bring, proving that even our darkest moments can spark a legacy of light and strength for others. Today, Petra leads a fulfilling personal life, raising her child with her husband Benjamin Lareche. Together, they continue to inspire others, blending family life with a shared commitment to philanthropy. Petra reflects, "Tragedy gives us the opportunity to put meaning into our lives. It changes our values, gives us the opportunity to think where we want to go. I lost the person closest to me, but I got a second chance to live." If Petra's incredible story has inspired you to make a difference, please consider making a monetary donation or volunteering your time to All Hands and Hearts. You'll find the link in the description. If you're enjoying this content, remember to like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when our next story is released. Thanks for watching.